If you enjoy the content on this channel, please like and subscribe. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare is a 2024 spy action comedy film directed, co-written and co-produced by Guy Ritchie. The film stars Henry Cavill, Eiza González, Ritchson, Henry Golding and Alex Pettyfer, based on the 2014 book Churchill's Secret Warriors, the explosive true story of the Special Forces Desperadoes of World War II by Damien Lewis. The film portrays a heavily fictionalized version of Operation Postmaster. The film would have its premiere on April 13, 2024 in New York and was released in the United States on April 19, 2024. Just a bit of history on the real Operation Postmaster. This was a British special operation conducted on the Spanish island of Fernando Po, now known as Bioko, off West Africa in the Gulf of Guinea during the Second World War. The mission was carried out by a small-scale raiding force and the Special Operations Executive in January of 1942. The objective was to board the Italian and German ships in the harbour and sail them to Lagos. The SSRF, under the command of Major Gus Marsh Phillips, left Britain in August 1941 and sailed a Ritchson trawler, a maid of honour, to the Spanish colony. The British authorities in the area refused to support the raid, which they considered a breach of Spanish neutrality. Permission of the operation to go ahead eventually came from the Foreign Office in London. On January 14, 1942, while the ship's officers were attending a party arranged by the Special Operations Executive agent, the commandos entered the port aboard two tugs, overpowered the ship's crews, and sailed off with the ships, including the Italian merchant vessel Duchessa d'Acosta. The raid boosted SOE's reputation at a critical time and demonstrated its ability to plan and conduct secret operations, no matter the political consequences. Now just a bit about the real people involved in Operation Postmaster. Henry Cavill plays Gus Marsh Phillips. Phillips, who was born in 1908 and died on the 12th of September 1942, was the founder of the British Army's No. 62 Commando and one of the forerunners of the Special Air Service. He was also noteworthy as being one of Ian Fleming's main inspirations for the character of James Bond. He would go on to marry fellow SSRF member Marjorie Stewart, portrayed in the film by Eiza González. Stewart was an actress before and after the war. Marsh Phillips was killed during Operation Aquant, which took place on the German-occupied French coastline in September 1942. With a view to harassing the enemy and boosting the Allied morale, Marsh Phillips led a raiding team of 11 men onto a beach in Goatly canoes. The landing was in an incorrect area of the beach, and they came under heavy fire from the German patrol. 4 of the raiders were injured and taken prisoner. 4 men went on the run, but were eventually captured, and the rest of the team were killed, including Marsh Phillips, who was shot when trying to swim ashore after his canoe got damaged. Ritchson plays Anders Larsen. Larsen was born in 1920 and died in 1945. He was a highly decorated Danish soldier who was the only non-Commonwealth recipient of the British Victoria Cross in the Second World War. He was posthumously awarded the United Kingdom's highest gallantry award for his actions during Operation Roast on April 8, 1945 at Lake Comacchio in Italy in the final weeks of the Italian campaign. Alex Pettyfer plays Geoffrey Appleyard. He was born in 1916 and lost his life in 1943. He was a British Army officer who served in the Commandos and Special Air Service during the Second World War. Hero Fiennes Tiffin plays Graham Hayes, or as he's known in the film, Henry Hayes, who was a British commando in the small-scale raiding force in the Second World War. He was born in 1914 and would lose his life in 1943. Hayes too was on Operation Aquant with Marsh Phillips and was actually one of the 4 members to escape. He managed to evade capture and made contact with a local French family who provided him with civilian clothing and contacted the French resistance. He was taken by train to Paris and then was moved along an escape line to the Spanish border, arriving in October 1942. After crossing into Spain, he was stopped by the Spanish border guards, who handed him over to the Germans and is believed to have been betrayed by a French double agent. Hayes was returned to Paris and held in solitary confinement in the prison for 9 months before being executed by firing squad on the 13th of July 1943. Some fun trivia notes. Ian Fleming introduces himself in the film as Ian Fleming. This is a nod to his fictional hero, James Bond, who in many of the films in which he appears introduces himself as Bond, James Bond. In an Easter egg, U-96 from Desperadoes makes an early appearance. Ian Fleming is played by Freddie Fox, whose father, Edward Fox, played M in the unofficial Bond entry Never Say Never Again. Hero Fiennes Tiffin's uncle, Ralph Fiennes, plays M in the Daniel Craig films. Alan Ritchson's character kills numerous Nazis with a knife. He's best known for playing Jack Reacher on television, a character who in the books, which the series is based on at least, absolutely hates knives. The epilogue says that Gus and Marjorie were married after the events of the film. Oddly, the characters have very few on-screen interactions during the film. Principal photography began on February 13, 2023 in Antalya, Turkey, and was wrapped up in April of that year. Now look, I went into this film expecting a normal sort of Guy Ritchie type of piece of filmmaking. Guy Ritchie is a strange filmmaker. I like his sort of gangster type, tongue-in-cheek style, over-the-top action, spectacles. But of course he really impressed me with a film called The Covenant, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, which was a very serious war drama. When I realized that this film was based, of course, on the real Operation Postmaster, I was kind of hoping for a similar style. A film about a very serious operation during the midst of World War II. Instead though, here we get a sort of slapstick, tongue-in-cheek, fun action flick that really doesn't take its source material very seriously. If you somehow manage to forget that this is based on a real-life story and these were real-life men and women putting their lives at risk, well then you can somewhat enjoy this film. The whole film is presented with a glint in its eye and a smirk on its face. This is not a film to be taken seriously, it rather is pure escapism. A good old-fashioned action flick where all the heroes are larger than life, everyone is exceptionally highly skilled, and the bad guys meet their end. That unfortunately though is really not doing justice to the real Operation Postmaster. It's not that I didn't enjoy the film, it's that it's just really not a true story at all, and rather is a work of pure fiction, loosely based on the real Operation Postmaster. You have to view a film like this with rose-tinted glasses. And I mean, this really acts like a high-octane action flick with little suspense and no real depth to the story or characters. This is more a fun, easy flick that you can easily pass the time with, dazzle at the beautiful people on screen who look nothing like their real-life counterparts, nor I believe act like them, and in many ways the film sort of makes a mockery of the real-life heroism of these people. It's not to say that I didn't enjoy the film, but looking back upon it, it is somewhat just sort of a frivolous popcorn flick. The acting is fine within the film, and I enjoyed each one of the characters. But as I say, this is a gangster flick trying to be a World War II film. Cavill is charming and likeable in the lead role, but that really doesn't do much. I thought one of the standouts had to be González. She's an absolutely beautiful woman, and she plays her role as well as it could be expected. Of course, we have the usual bad guy Germans, with Til Schweiger doing his best with very weak lines. And we have the hugely buff Alan Ritchson playing the Danish Anders Larsen, whom I somehow don't think look like an Arnold Schwarzenegger wannabe. One of the things though I must heavily criticize, albeit it's a good performance from Rory Kinnear, is the absolutely outlandish and frankly pathetic makeup for Winston Churchill. Kinnear tries to invoke the famous politician's grandeur with his delivery of the lines, but looks absolutely nothing like Winston Churchill. Whoever did the makeup for this film should never partake in those sort of activities ever again. I didn't even know how Guy Ritchie approved this. It looks so outlandish and unrealistic. Look, as I said before, this is a real tongue-in-cheek sort of film. It's fun, it's easy, and really they should have just made a fictionalized version about this group of renegade men not following orders and single-handedly trying to win the war by themselves. It's when you start to read the real mission, understand the real heroes behind these characters, that the film somewhat falls flat and almost seems somewhat offensive. As I said, there's two ways to view this film. One as a pure action piece, and another as a historical drama that is completely and utterly inaccurate. If you like Guy Ritchie, this is a film for you. It's fun, it's pure escapism, but in the same breath, somewhat insulting to the real history. The Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare gets a 7 out of 10.